Shall I phone up custody, Sarge, or are we alright? Oh, I dodged the bullet there.
We are simply asking you, does any of this make sense to you?
Oh, 13:33 hours. LF6 Alpha Oscar, beeping the horn.
Chances we know you are, that you know you get that at a later date.
Okay.
Take your freedom back!
Maybe read up on the right.
Take your freedom back!
Maybe read up on the right.
Take your freedom back!
Fascism at its finest!
On the 21st of November 2020, 3 weeks after the national lockdown, myself and Joe, my good friend Joe, were arrested for organising a gathering of more than 30 and being in a gathering of more than 2. I'll be showing you some footage from the day. You've just seen my arrest, and what is just about to come up on the screen behind you is footage from protesters on the day of our arrest. In this first part, I'm going to be showing you footage of the day. Head down to the pier, guys.
Here we go.
That was quick.
Good afternoon, everybody. People of Bournemouth, the resistance has arrived.
I'll also show you a part of my interview at the police station. And then in the second part, I will show you parts of my skeleton argument and exactly how I have proven in court, it's a court ruling, that Dorset Police broke human rights laws that day. So rather than explain in detail what happened that day, it's probably easier for you just to listen to the police interview, as quite a lot of the detail is actually in there anyway. Before we get onto my police interview, there's a little bit more footage from the day.
What you police constables need to do right now to show us that you're listening to us is step back. Step back from this political protest. Go on, this is your moment, do it. Just do it.
Don't touch me. He's not done anything. Don't push me. Whoa! That's assault. What the hell? Get off it. Get off it. What's he done? Fascism!
This interview is being audio recorded and is taking place at Paul Police Station. Today's date is Saturday the 21st of November 2020. The time by my watch is 8:34 hours. The first thing is that whilst you are here in custody and for the duration of your time here, you have a number of rights available to you, okay? And those are really important rights. The most important one of those is to speak to a solicitor that's free of charge to you and completely independent of the police. So it has no impact on the investigation in terms of what we do as police. So far you've said that you want to proceed without a solicitor, is that correct?
Yes.
Do you wish to give a reason as to why you've chosen to do that?
because I'm reasonably knowledgeable on my law and I don't feel I need one.
Okay. It's an ongoing right, so if you change your mind at any time in the interview, please let us know. Okay? But for now, you're happy to continue?
Yes.
Lovely. Before we go any further, I must remind you that you're under caution, which you do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something which you later learn in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. You've been arrested today for a couple of offences. These are in terms of new COVID regulations that have come into play since the 5th of November. The offences that you've been arrested for are participating in a gathering in a public place with more than 2 people, and to hold or be involved in a gathering in a public place with more than 30 people. We're here to speak to you about these matters tonight. So to begin with, Mike, can you just tell me about your involvement in the protest today?
Well, I want to start with saying I will be saying no comment through all this video and through this interview. The reason I'll be doing that is because you guys have had 4, 5, 6 hours, whatever you've had to prepare for this interview. You've got questions, you've looked at the laws, you've looked at the rights. All I've had is a book in that cell, and until I've looked at my rights and where I stand, because I believe you guys have broken human rights laws today, I'm going to be no comment in the interview for that reason. It's not to make myself look dodgy.
That's fine.
That's the only reason I'm going to be saying no comment today. And the only answer I want to give is basically give us orders on what we need to do with events, etc. And we put those events on. That is all I'm going to say. Fire away with your questions.
So you say you've not looked at your rights, because one of your rights is to view our codes of practice. That is a right in custody. So if you've asked for that right, you can be given our codes of practice to view. Is that not a right that you've been given?
It's more human rights, stuff like that.
It's more human rights.
Yeah.
Okay. You're right, I have been preparing for this interview. Because I like to know what I'm dealing with here, and this is quite a controversial issue to explore. Okay, I am aware of that. In terms of human rights, is it safe to say there's Article 10, protect freedom of expression, and Article 11, protect freedom of assembly and association? Would those be human rights that you're interested in at this moment in time?
Possibly, without looking, I can't say for sure.
Okay. The protest today in Bournemouth, what is Stand Up X?
No comment.
What do you want to tell me about it?
No comment.
What's your involvement with Stand Up X?
No comment.
Are they behind these movements taking place all over the country, I believe? There's been protests on Saturdays in other areas, so are you linked into that from the Bournemouth aspect of it?
No comment.
Were you involved in this protest today in Bournemouth?
No comment.
Did you just attend to take part, or were you organising it?
No comment.
Have you spoken to police about any protests?
No comment.
Because it's my understanding that this is something that you care passionately about, and you have been speaking to police in terms of organising them, is that correct?
No comment.
But recently...
I liaise with a liaison officer, yes.
Ah, right, okay. And was that the case with the one today?
No comment.
I'm not trying to trip you up, I'm just trying to get an
I know, and I don't want to incriminate myself as well, and obviously I do know. Okay, so what was the question again, sorry?
Right, let's start. Let me show you what I've got. Just, I'm not here to trip you up.
Sorry, can I just interrupt? So, obviously, the reason that people get given a solicitor or the opportunity to speak to a solicitor is because solicitors understand the law fully and they're fully trained. Obviously, you've chosen not to have one, but you do have the right to have one. Are you absolutely sure you don't want one today?
Absolutely sure.
Why is that?
Because I don't trust them. That's the answer. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. It's just because obviously you're saying it's until you fully understand.
I need to look at I need to go onto the internet and I need to look up the Human Rights Act. Obviously, I can't do that here. I can't do that in the books here. So I need to look up that before I can give you an accurate answer to what. I've been thinking in the cell. I've been thinking. I knew obviously I anticipated you guys were possibly going to try and arrest me. So this is what I decided I was going to do. So I need until I've got I can look at certain aspects of what you're accusing me of. I'm not prepared to answer any questions, and that's the reason why.
With you saying that you need to understand it, the solicitor would help, but if you don't trust them, it's obviously down to you. It just helps us understand why you haven't got one yesterday.
I'm sorry, but I don't.
No, don't apologise. No, it's not.
Yeah, we're not trying to trip you up. It's obviously you've been arrested for criminal matters, so we are going to have to explore that. But yeah, and that's why I asked the question about one of your rights to view our codes of practice. But it looks like you're aware of human rights. That seems to be what you're basing a lot of your work on in this respect. So
it's way more than that. But I say I without knowing. You've got the Bill of Rights as well, 1688. There's lots of things. I say I haven't memorised all that off by heart, so I don't without actually looking at it physically. That's why I don't really want to be answering any questions because I don't know if what you're saying is correct as well. So I don't want to, because there's a lot of grey areas around with that as well, as you probably know. So
so. You were arrested today at the protest that was taking place in Bournemouth. You've been seen there by officers. I'll come on to that in a minute. I just want to try and get a bit of background with you because you did say that you've spoken to police liaison officers previously.
Yes, up until we've been speaking with all the way through for 6 months.
Yeah.
Only since the 5th of November has it really sort of got a bit more touchy. We did one, I believe, last week, and they kind of just stood and watched. And yeah, I'm sorry, I don't want to. I'm saying too much already, and I know I'm going to say stuff that I regret. So please, I don't want to talk too much about it. But to cut a long story short, I've been liaising with an officer for the last 6 months. Obviously, since the next lot of fraudulent laws have come in place, yes, it's not been as friendly. Yeah.
Okay. So something's changed since November with this new lockdown and the new guidance.
Yeah.
Okay. Things like human rights, and this new guidance has come in because
guidance. No comment.
Okay. The second one, Regulation 10, is hold or be involved in holding a gathering of more than 30 people on land in England. These are the new regulations. Anything you want to say?
No comment.
Okay. How many people were out today?
No comment.
You've been witness there. You're named as making comments to officers along the lines of, we're only marching because you keep letting us. You were chanting, if you let us do some speeches, we'll stop marching. Freedom. And had stickers in your possession saying, stop fucking complying.
Right, okay. No comment. No comment.
What are you disputing in this? Are you disputing being there?
No comment.
Are you disputing chanting?
No comment.
Are you disputing having these stickers?
No comment.
You've spoken to police and said we're going to do a couple of speeches and move on.
No comment.
There were speeches at peer approach. You appeared to be talking to prominent members of the group. What if this isn't true? What are you doing there?
Helping the police.
Helping the police?
Yeah, because if you look at when we've liaised with the police before, what we've done is we've had marshals. So what I'm actually doing is helping you guys out, and you've used it as a fucking thing in there. It's disgraceful.
Okay.
As you've seen, I was struggling to say no comment, but I stayed quiet enough that I didn't give away too much, and I was very selective in what I was saying. I kind of knew, because I had like 4 hours in the cell to think about stuff, so I knew how I was going to approach stuff, and I knew what the only answers that I was going to give, which was about the contact with the liaison officers, because I knew this would benefit my case in the long run. So I'm just going to show you the rest of my interview. I'm not going to show you, it was like about 50 minutes long, I believe. I'm not going to show you the whole 50 minutes. I'll just shorten it down to another 10-minute part, and then I'll get straight into the skeleton argument and how I put that together and how essentially it won our case. Right, so somehow the liaison officer, one of the ladies, small lady, nice lady actually, for some reason she's got in her head that I'm one of the organisers. She comes up to me and she's basically saying, people need to stop walking in the road. We're really concerned about the traffic. What do you need us to do to stop marching the roads? And I basically said, you keep kettling us in, so when you kettle us in, we're just going to walk and march somewhere else.
And how have you responded to her?
We said to her, look, the only reason we're marching on the roads is because you keep kettling us in when we stop. So, and then they said, well, if you can get everyone else to not march on the roads, that'd be brilliant. And that's exactly what we did. We went down to the pier, we marched through the gardens to the square and to the town hall. We did exactly what the liaison officers told us to do. So the way they're trying to stitch us up now, I'm not happy with that, if I'm honest.
So, from what you've just said, you were participating. You were there.
I'll admit, I was definitely there. I mean, I can't deny that. I've got arrested there, and
yeah, and it was a protest. And there were a lot of people there.
It was a protest, yeah. But I don't really want to say too much more. I'll admit to being there.
Were you talking to any of the speakers there?
No comment.
Were you directing people across roads, controlling traffic?
No comment. It's unbelievable.
Sorry, what's unbelievable?
Just some of the stuff in there.
In what?
In what we've written. I don't know, it just winds me up more. Makes me more stern.
This is just something that got pulled off the Echo website in relation to the protest. Is that you there in the green coat?
Yes.
What are you doing there?
Helping the police.
Helping the police?
Yeah, because if you look at when we've liaised with the police before, what we've done is we've had marshals. So what I'm actually doing is helping you guys out, and you've used it as a fucking thing in there. It's disgraceful.
Okay.
I'm helping you guys out there. So because we were in the road.
So there's people crossing the road. Are you helping stop the traffic so they can get across?
Yes, I was. Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was helping you guys out because, like I said, I had conversations with liaison guys about the traffic.
Yeah.
So
that was after the police approached you?
Yes, yeah, that was by the roundabout, I'm guessing, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bath Hotel roundabout, because that's the only place I did it.
Yeah.
Helping you guys out. Because I was quite aware that we didn't have any marshals, and we've done marshals before with it, so...
Yeah. Okay.
Right, so I'll try and so basically when we kind of started off in the gardens, and when we were when we went to the pier, basically we could see we were getting cattled in by you guys, so we walked up.
Yeah.
And then as we were walking up, we realised you were stopping us at the top there as well, so we come back again. All we were doing was walking places that we weren't kettled in.
Yeah.
So whoever is at the front and gets stopped, they just shout, and we just turn the other way. So I can't remember where I was going with this now, but at the end of the day, we were only walking because we were getting kettled in. And when we got to, I believe it was up the top of, I'm not very good at roads in Bournemouth, I think by Horseshoe Common, say this liaison officer, the lady, said, Mike, it's causing havoc with traffic. What do we need to do? What do you need us to do to stop you marching on the roads? And I said, stop kettling us in. Yeah. I said, because that's the only reason we're marching, because we feel like you're just going to come in and arrest us all. And that's why I did the road thing, because I felt a bit guilty because everyone was going on the road.
Right. Okay. I know that you've been liaising with police, and you were forwarded an email from our superintendent about these new regulations and the possibility of being liable for prosecution. Is that correct?
Possibly, yeah. I don't know. I don't know what one you mean. That's my email, yes.
Are you on social media, Mike?
No comment.
Mike, James, John, would that be you?
No comment.
Because this, which I've printed off here, is I think it's a Facebook post.
No comment.
Did you share an email correspondence from the police on social media about this? Or is that someone else's account?
No comment.
Get away from officers that have just been watching what's going on?
I've attempted to walk away, yes, because I actually became quite aware that I was being followed by about 10 of them the whole time. Every time I even went to the bin to drop a can in the bin, I was getting followed. So yeah, I was fully aware of them following me, and yeah, I did attempt to try and walk away from them, but all they had to do was come up to me and say, "You're arresting me." Well, why did they have to follow me around and make me go around? I don't get it. It was very strange. I've never seen anything like it in my life. And they're saying I'm running away from them. Everywhere I went, I was followed. It's like my shadow.
So did you try to run away from officers?
I tried to walk, but I didn't know I was under arrest. Didn't know I was. No one told me that I was under arrest. So how could I be running away from officers when nobody told me I was even under arrest?
Okay. So you thought you were doing something wrong, or?
I had 20 police officers around me. Do you really think I was going to get away from them?
And why do you think that was?
I don't know. But I was fully aware of them following me, yeah. I thought police officers normally just come up to you and just like arrest you rather than following you and then just and leading you down a back road to arrest you, but it's not the way I normally know how to do it, but hey.
About. This is police reference BPS protest 1. Paper given to PC. Stand with us, dear Dorset Police. Do you recognise that?
Yeah, they're in my pocket, yeah.
Did you give that to an officer?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is to do with the reason why you were protesting today? Did you write this yourself?
It's the email, but yeah, you know that's the email. So that's exactly the same email as sent to the police.
Did you generate this yourself?
Yes.
And were you giving these out to people?
No comment.
What was your intention for them?
To give to the police.
Okay. Anybody else?
No comment.
Were you giving them to members of the public?
It would be a bit pointless, but yeah, no. Just giving that to the police.
Your possession, your jacket. Do you recognise that?
Yeah.
What do you want to tell me about it?
Just some useful information.
Useful information.
Yeah.
So this talks about the right to peaceful protest in the UK, guaranteed under European Convention of Human Rights. It mentions Article 10, which I touched on at the beginning, freedom of expression, and Article 11, right to peaceful assembly. Police are more likely to be cooperative if they've got good warning in advance. So these look like guidelines.
Shall I phone up custody, Sarge, or are we alright? Oh, I dodged the bullet there.
Filming me, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Where is your protection against the government for the people?
No, sorry mate, doing
You need to look at what your constable's oath is saying to you, sir. This is purely a gathering of ordinary
Hotel Club 19.
exercising
Horn.
their liberties of freedom, which is part of
13:33 hours. LF6 Alpha Oscar, beeping the horn.
In the aftermath, of course, all the local papers reported it. And at the time of recording of this, so it's the 30th of September, funny enough, no local newspapers have reported that we beat Dorset Police in court. And it's now 4 days after the court ruling of a not guilty. As is the headline on the video, and as I mentioned in the interview a couple of times, I didn't, and Joe didn't as well, but obviously this is my version of the day and the verdict. We didn't use any lawyer or solicitor, and the reason for that is, for me, thankfully, I worked this out not that long before, but I kind of worked out before that at the end of the day, lawyers, solicitors, they are there for the system, essentially. So they, in their everyday lives, are working in the police stations, in the courts, and are around these places every single day. They're probably seeing the same people. If you've ever been in a court, most of these prosecution teams know these people, or they know each other. So realistically, where are these people's loyalties and allegiances going to be? They're going to be with the court and the police, and especially in a case like this, I don't believe it would be beneficial at all, and I think it has been justified and proven, because I mean, I don't know the details of other certain cases, but I find it very, very strange that people have spent thousands and thousands and thousands on solicitors and lawyers and to get advice, and they've been convicted and got fines and stuff. So yeah, I mean, a good example I always use is so in the classic example is when in like a car accident. So if you're driving your car and someone jumps out in front of you, you will probably get done for dangerous driving, and your solicitor will probably convince you to take a lesser charge, like for manslaughter. Now, how many times? Why should you admit to something or admit to a version of events that is not true and you have not done? Why should you take the blame for something that you have not done? Just because, well, that's just how the system is. How many people like accept charges or accept responsibility for something just to take a lesser charge, or if they go not guilty, they might get a bigger sentence? It's an absolute scam. I think a lot of the time, if you just challenge stuff by yourself in a legal way and find an argument for it, I think you'd be much better off in 99% of circumstances. At the end of the day, if you get arrested for something and it's a specific subject, it doesn't take... It does take a bit of researching and digging, but you've got one subject to research and master, like legally. Just do it. Just do it. And what I mean by that is just one specific part of the law. So in my case, all I had to master was Regulation 10 and Regulation 9 and a few other bits of the coronavirus legislation, and then look up the specific parts of the law which are relative to my case. I'm not saying you have to like read the book of law and these 500-page, 1,000-page books on law. You don't. You just need to master that particular part of your case. And the advantage you have as well is a lot of these prosecutions will be dealing with several cases. So as long as you can master your case and have a good argument, you don't even have to be particularly confident. I've said it before. I jumble on my words, I stutter, and I did in court. But most courts, well, they have to. Every court will allow you to be as comfortable as possible. For example, I took my laptop in because I felt I had all my stuff on there. It was a lot easier reading off a screen, and it bloody was. It was a lot easier reading off the screen, and you're not looking down at bits of paper and picking it up and stuff like that. But you get the point. So, yeah, let's get into my skeleton argument and what, essentially won us the case. So, after many phone calls and getting painfully cut off at around the same time, the 22 mark, like several times, I learnt so much over these last couple of years. Your average Joe won't sort of get caught up in the law, so you don't really, and when you do, you'd normally use a lawyer, so they would deal with all this stuff, and they've probably got avenues and ways to sort of contact the courts and the judges and etc. So, but the incompetence and just the unprofessionalism, it really, really did shock me. And there you have it. But it didn't stop us going out and fighting for our rights, and this happened literally the next week.
Look
look at them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 police officers.
You think it's okay on these children?
So I got arrested on the 21st of November, and this happened on the 28th of November, where we got stuck in the coach on the way up to London. And congratulations to the guys who won their case and got this chucked out before it even got to court. I wasn't a part of that, I can't take credit for that, but yeah, well done to those guys. But yeah, we did not have a break at all, and we carried on going, until January, when the two girls got arrested for drinking coffee on the bench.
Coffee? That is not antisocial. Well, because yes, you're provoking me. You are. You literally are. It's not attacking I was sitting on a bench. What the hell are you doing to this woman? You are breaking your own laws, your own. This is disgusting. What are you doing? What's this poor woman doing?
So it was a pretty eventful few months, and I didn't really have a lot of time to think about stuff, and we'll be going into this in more detail as well. We're going to do a separate video or documentary on the whole story of the group and the journey and all that, but for this video I just want to I want to concentrate on how we beat Dorset Police in court, and did it without any real solicitor or lawyer. But this is where I admit I had a little bit of help, and I say a big thanks to my friend Lance.
Information from 7 organisations anytime we want by law.
Who had a very similar case, who was arrested a week before myself, I believe, in Exeter, and he won his case in July 2021, if I remember correctly. I remember because obviously I've quoted the case in my case, so. But he very kindly handed me his argument, which was written up by a lawyer. A lot of the framework of my argument and just the general layout was very similar to his, and it kind of taught me how to present something in court as well. So I do recommend anyone doing it. I mean, you can go online and just have a look at other cases and how they've defended certain parts of their case, and you can get sort of an idea of how to present it. So around half of my argument was very similar. I quoted a lot of the cases that were quoted in Lance's case, i.e. the Dolan case, which I will bring up later in the video when I'm going through the details. So we went back in January 2021, I believe, and it was adjourned till September of that year, I believe. As I mentioned, during that time, Lance had his case in July, and I'll be honest, like I mentioned, where we were so busy, I hadn't really gone into my case much, and that kind of spurred me on to look into it more and start bombarding them with emails and obviously quoting Lance's case. And very soon after that, they dropped the organisation charges. So they dropped the charges that were under Regulation 10 and decided they were only going to proceed with the participation charges, which was under Regulation 9. Now, it was a bit of a surprise at first, but when I looked into it in a bit more detail and just thought about it a little bit, I worked out something really key that I believe they were very worried about. So in Regulation 10, paragraph 6, it states that political protests are exempt in their own legislation. Now, there was no lack of evidence whatsoever of me being the organiser. I'd been liaising with the police for 6 months. I'd had email exchanges with them, phone call exchanges, conversations on the day, posts on Facebook. There was no lack of evidence whatsoever for myself being one of the organisers. So I then had to think, now why have they dropped the organisation charges? And like I just mentioned, that Regulation 10, paragraph 6 was key. And that's when I knew that they were worried about that exemption being in there and were basically trying to get us convicted purely on the participating charges. So that's when I battened down and just kept repeating this point over and over and over again, that in Regulation 10, paragraph 6, it clearly states that political protests are exempt. And their argument was, well, we're not charging you both under Regulation 10 anymore. Those exemptions don't apply anymore. We understand if that was the case with organising the event, and then this is how strange it became. So for 6 months, obviously, I was because of the supposed threat of a £25,000 fine. Some papers were saying unlimited. I was always very worried or wary about saying publicly or anyone else saying that I was an organiser, because for obvious reasons you don't want to be pinned, you don't want a £25,000 fine pinned on you. But because they had dropped the organisation charges, I could then actually come out and say I was the organiser, and it was relatively easy to prove, and I did prove it in court. And then you have to, and then I was obviously presenting my case that where from the organiser, how can that exemption not apply? And essentially what you're saying is it's legal to organise a protest but illegal to attend them. And it wasn't the main point that won the case, but it was mentioned in the closing statement from the judge that it has to offer a reasonable excuse, because it's clear that I was the organiser. So what is Regulation 10? So Regulation 10 is basically talking about the organisation or facilitation of gatherings, and it's just setting out the rules that you're not allowed to have a gathering of more than 30. And if you go down to where I've marked, it says, so if you look at paragraph 5C, is not a gathering in relation to which any of the exceptions set out in Regulation 11, so far as capable to apply to the gathering, or the exception in paragraph 6 applies. So if you read paragraph 6, it says, this paragraph applies if in the case of the gathering described in paragraph 5, the person holding the gathering, or if they are not the person responsible for organising that gathering, the gathering organiser is a business, charitable, benevolent, public body, or, key to our case, political body. So basically, there are exceptions like funerals, government stuff, unsurprisingly. But key to our case, political bodies were exempt, and we clearly were a political body, as we were challenging the current laws, challenging the government's statements, and generally just challenging the scamdemic in general. I also had key evidence that Dorset Police were also unsure about the regulations, and this was an email that I produced in court where even they, as you can see from this email reply, They even point out themselves that it is arguably possible that a protest can be organised under Regulation 10. So I used this in a way where, well, even if Dorset Police are unsure, how do you expect us to be sure? And again, it was used in the judge's closing statement.
Yes, that's received.
And you, sir, filming me, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Where is your protection against the government for the people?
No, sorry, mate, doing
You need to look at what your constable's oath is saying to you, sir. Taking that constable's oath. They are not protecting the people from the government. Listen to me. We do not go against the police. We come from the heart. We do not attack. We do not have fear, and we do not have anger within us. When we have anger within us, when we have anger and we start to react with anger, that means fear has gone within us at some stage. Okay? That can happen to anyone. This is purely a gathering of all
Hotel Golf 19.
exercising
Horn.
their liberties of freedom, which is part of
13:33 hours. LF6 Alpha Oscar, beeping the horn.
So another part of the case that we felt was really, really important was trying to give the judge a picture in his or her head. The judge was a lady, which I can't help but think definitely helped proceedings as well. But yeah, essentially they're going to be potentially seeing it for the first time, and this particular judge was. So we were only doing the same as what we believed the police prosecution was going to do to us. So it was why I did like a little compilation video, which you saw earlier, and I tried to build up a picture in her head. So rather than just having all the evidence that the police prosecution presented, which wasn't a huge amount, but it was like literally our what you call our lowlights. So all the worst things that happened that day were like highlighted, basically.
We are dirty, infected human beings. Coronavirus is a 99%
So we had to kind of do what I felt we had to do the opposite.
current R rate equates to 6.9 people in every 100,000 that will contract the COVID-19 virus. 6.9 in every 100,000.
When they ask us, what did we do in the year 2020? Are you going to be able to stand up and say that you knew all of the information?
It is a very important thing to do what we're doing here, ladies and gentlemen. And so far the police have stepped back. I've been in London where there has been brutal metropolitan policing. And at least so far we've not seen that. But in my eyes, what you police constables need to do right now to show us that you're listening to us is step back. Step back from this political protest. Go on, this is your moment, do it.
And which is what I tried to do with the compilation video, asking some of the policemen that were put onto the stands, like were we ever violent, were we always friendly to you, just building up trying to paint a picture in a judge's head of what it actually was, which is why I felt it was important to show like previous protests. But yeah, that was another important part. And I'd say the other big part that actually won us the case was the Human Rights Act, Article 10 and Article 11.
Right now, to show us that you're listening to us, is step back. Step back from this political protest. Go on, this is your moment, do it.
This is actually a screen grab from my skeleton argument, and rather than send you to sleep by reading you it all, I'll just sort of give you a brief summary of what it is explaining. So it's basically talking about Article 10 and Article 11, and it's quoting a case, it is Ziegler, which is basically a case where they blocked off some roads to an arms fair, and they were acquitted. This is a case I've noticed is quoted in quite a lot of human rights trials and court cases, and they can and will be used again. I must point out that the Simon Dolan case was one of the key parts. The reason being because this is a Supreme Court case, so all judges, magistrates, courts all around the country have to take notice of this ruling. And basically, the matter of whether coronavirus regulations could be incompatible with the Article 11 was further explored in this case, where the Court of Appeal held, in our view, the regulations cannot be regarded as incompatible with Article 11, given the express possibility of an exception that there was a reasonable excuse. So it therefore, exercising one's Article 11 rights must be capable of providing a reasonable excuse for the purposes of regulations, because if they were not capable of constituting a reasonable excuse, then the regulations would be incompatible with the convention rights. And essentially that's why she listened and had to take notice of that ruling. But the important set of sub-questions that were the exact same questions that were read out in court, you may have noticed them on the screen behind you just a minute ago, were: is what the defendant did in exercise of one of the rights in Article 10 or 11, so freedom of assembly, freedom of speech? If so, is there an interference by a public authority with that right? If there is an interference, is it prescribed by law? If so, is the interference in pursuit of a legitimate aim as set out in paragraph 2 of Article 10 or 11, i.e. freedom of expression, freedom of speech, for example, the protection of the right of others? If so, is this interference necessary in a democratic society to achieve the legitimate aim? And the judge read all these questions out, answered yes to every single one, and after she answered yes to the fifth question, said, and that is why I find the defendants not guilty.
1411.
He's finished June Joan, he's got his perfect paper compensate.
Is that his pizza?
I don't know. Excuse me, want help?
Good ask.
No, just being honest, Mark.
No, I haven't.
Actually, no, why are you filming? I've just come down here and bought things, so nothing to do with it. Are you with these people here? Oh, yeah, what do you think? Because we're on TV, that's why. It's a daughter. Daughter. Yeah? Sorry, I can't understand. Thanks, bud. You just had a
Breaking the 2-metre rule.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Do you understand what I told you there?
I do not understand. I do not stand under you.
Okay.
This is purely a government of ordinary
Hotel Golf 19.
exercising freedom, which is part of
13:33 hours. LF6 Alpha Oscar, speaking the horn.
big.
13:48 hours. Bath Road.
Rather handsome profile, what? It means that the villain will be